Initially, when I was deciding on what video I wanted to make, I wanted to make a video about fighting games. Games about the struggle of achieving a singular goal throughout a long period of time, rather than a bunch of segmented segments that lead you to kind of one conclusion. These games are specifically designed to make you mad. My knee-jerk reaction to making a video like this was, eh. Games like Getting Over It and Jump King have kind of been taking all the spotlight, in a sense, from other games that do similar things in different ways, such as roguelikes. In these games, you die over and over and over again. Not because it's not fun per se, well, it can be, but it can also be incredibly frustrating. However, these games have unique gameplay opportunities that you would not be able to experience otherwise. Currently, the footage I'm using is from Risk of Rain 2, a game developed primarily by 8 people. What makes Risk of Rain 2 so interesting, despite the fact that it's a monumental success in the indie scene, is that whenever you keep dying, you always load it back up. It only takes around 2 clicks to get back in a game, and you always miss something. What makes Risk of Rain 2 similar to Faudian type games is that it's like banging your head over and over and over again into a brick wall, but you slowly move the brick wall over time rather than it just staying still. Because no matter how many runs you do, there's always something you miss. And in Faudian type games like Jump King and Getting Over It, you never really beat the game until you beat it, in a sense. And roguelikes are exactly the same. You never really beat it until you truly beat it. And there's always the discussion of whether it's not about the destination, it's about the journey, as if that isn't a big cliche in and of itself. The concept of a roguelike is hardly a new one. Games have been making permadeath modes forever. It's not like this is something that came out of the blue. However, what makes roguelikes and fighting type games different specifically is that failure is not necessarily the end, nor is it something that should be not celebrated. These failures build the foundation for gameplay further down the line, and experiences that you could otherwise not experience without having made the failures to begin with. There are a lot of people who simply refuse to play roguelike games at all because they don't like the idea of starting over. It bruises their ego to some degree. But despite that, there is a large audience that otherwise likes those types of games, such as the Dark Souls community, or even Elden Ring, made by the same developer, FromSoft. These games provide a steep challenge and learning curve to their designs that otherwise couldn't exist without the idea of losing or having some sort of monumental risk to your progress. This risk, in a sense, is what makes these games so compelling, because every time you boot up a game, you are risking your time and risking what you otherwise could have done if you didn't die, or choose not to, or any of the above. Many times we discuss the inclusivity of games, and games that want you to fail over and over and over aren't seen as that accessible because somehow failure doesn't mean that one can't engage with game mechanics or one is not willing to engage with game mechanics. Games like Hades specifically use death as a literal construct, bringing Zagreus back to the House of Hades every single time, because that is simply part of Greek mythology, and dying in Tartarus is essentially nothing. And since Zagreus is a god in a sense, why not? Why is that not a possibility? There's also the argument to be made about how dying in games is somehow not inclusive, to that I just simply don't understand. Because if a game doesn't punish you for death, how is that not being inclusive? It wants you to engage with the mechanics. And if one isn't willing to engage with a game on a not even deep level, but just a surface level, and try to play the game that the way the developers encourage you to, is simply just a complete oversight on a player's perspective. The developers are not trying to coddle people into playing their games. They want people to play their games because they're simply fun. Roguelikes exist in a sort of vacuum because they're mostly one-shot spin-off games or game modes because it's hard to incorporate multiplayer elements in a game that specifically wants to tailor its experience around single player. Many of these roguelike games as well are very diverse in their cast. For example, the character that I'm playing in this current game, Risk of Rain 2, is actually a female sniper rifle character, and it's not even limited to simply gender. The characters range from dragons to hybrid robots to just a dude with two guns. There's really like no end to the creativity that these roguelike games can have because the characters aren't dependent upon certain elements of aesthetic or art style. They can freely do what they want because these characters are merely a cast rather than one individual main character in a sense. There does remain a huge question, however. What do these games actually have to offer to the average person? Or even specific groups of people? And the answer is, well, I don't really know. And doesn't really matter either. Games are inherently subjective, and how people engage with them is also subjective. It doesn't matter if your game has the best graphics, or the most fluid gameplay, or the most riveting story ever. Why people play games is completely detached from that, and it's very simple. People just want to play games because they're fun and they can escape their own reality by going into a different one. Perhaps the death in games and roguelikes and failures in fighting type games are a result of people's inherent fears to death itself and the inherent morality that everything in nature has. Everything is in a constant state of flux and nothing ever stays the same. And perhaps it's the reality of this that rubs people the wrong way instead of actually the games themselves or having coherent arguments to whether or not they like those experiences to begin with. However, I think it's a poignant reminder that these games aren't real. Nothing in these games have ever been real, and they're all a result of people coming together to make something that they find fun and enjoyable. If it weren't for the people that create these amazing experiences, we would never be able to think about these things at all in the way that we are. And I think it's a good reminder that although these experiences are inherently human, I think they can transcend their own medium by turning into something completely different. I think that the inherent unfairness of these games is a testament to the struggle that we all face in our daily lives. We're not given any direction, we're not given any direct goal to work through something in our own lives. We're only told things by other people, and we can only experience them for ourselves in our own unique ways. And these games remind us that we are kind of alone in a sense, and we must learn for ourselves. And I think it's an uncomfortable reality for a lot of people, but I think it's a good reminder that we're all human, and that these games are also made by human people too. There's no wrong or right way to go about these experiences, and they all have something to offer, at least someone. And it's not for everyone. And sure, people are going to make mistakes, but isn't making mistakes human nature and part of life?